The unspeakable day, Dallas, November 22, 1963. The sun shone brightly on Dallas that Friday. President John F. Kennedy was in town, a charismatic leader on a political trip. Crowds lined the streets, eager for a glimpse of their young president and the First Lady. Few could have imagined the darkness that was about to descend. The presidential motorcade moved slowly through Dealey Plaza. The cheers of the crowd were suddenly pierced by sharp, rifle-like cracks. Confusion turned to horror. The president, vibrant and smiling moments before, slumped forward. His wife, Jacqueline, cradled him, her pink suit stained with an unimaginable reality. The dream of Camelot, as Kennedy's era was often called, was violently extinguished on that Texas street. The world watched, first in disbelief, then in raw grief. The initial reports were chaotic, a maelstrom of fear and speculation. Was it one shooter? Were there more? The questions began almost immediately. The assassination was not just the death of a man, it was the death of an era's innocence. John F. Kennedy, a presidency of peril and promise. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, ascended to the office in January 1961. He brought with him an aura of youth, vigor, and intellectualism. His call to ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, resonated deeply. His presidency was marked by bold initiatives like the Peace Corps and the ambitious goal of landing a man on the moon. He navigated the treacherous waters of the Cold War, seeking paths towards peace while standing firm against Soviet expansionism. However, Kennedy's time in office was fraught with immense challenges. The Cold War cast a long, dark shadow, leading to terrifying confrontations like the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. Domestically, the burgeoning civil rights movement demanded an end to racial segregation and discrimination. His efforts to steer the nation through these turbulent times were met with both admiration and fierce opposition. He was a president who dared to challenge the status quo, and in doing so, he inevitably made powerful enemies. These enemies were numerous and varied. The political landscape was a minefield, and Kennedy walked it with a courage that some saw as recklessness. The motorcade and the moment time froze. The Dallas trip in November 1963 was intended to be a political fence-mending tour. Texas was a crucial state, and Kennedy hoped to unify the Democratic Party there ahead of the 1964 election. The weather was clear as the presidential motorcade made its way from Love Field Airport towards the Dallas Trade Mart. First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy, radiant in her pink Chanel suit, sat beside him. Texas Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie were seated in the jump seats directly in front of them. The crowds were enthusiastic, waving and cheering. As the limousine turned from Houston Street onto Elm Street, passing the Texas School Book Depository, the atmosphere changed with horrifying speed. At approximately 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the first shot rang out. Witnesses described it as sounding like a firecracker or a car backfiring. There was a brief, confused pause. Then, more shots followed in quick succession. President Kennedy, who had been waving to the crowd, suddenly clutched at his throat and slumped towards his wife. Governor Connally, seated in front of Kennedy, was also hit and cried out in pain. The limousine, a scene of unimaginable horror, sped away from Dealey Plaza, racing towards Parkland Memorial Hospital. The world would soon learn that its most powerful leader had been struck down. Lee Harvey Oswald, the enigma at the window. Within hours of the assassination, the Dallas police arrested a suspect. His name was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a 24-year-old former U.S. Marine with a complex and contradictory past. Oswald had defected to the Soviet Union in 1959, only to return to the United States with his Russian wife Marina in 1962. He had a history of involvement with pro-Castro and Marxist groups. Crucially, he worked at the Texas School Book Depository, the very building from which investigators claimed the shots had been fired. A rifle was found on the 6th floor of the depository, near a window overlooking Dealey Plaza. Oswald's background painted a picture of a troubled and ideologically driven individual. His service in the Marines had given him sharpshooter training. Authorities quickly pieced together a narrative. Oswald, a lone, disgruntled Marxist, had acted out of a twisted political motive. During his brief time in police custody, Oswald denied any involvement in the assassination. He famously declared to reporters, "I'm just a patsy." He claimed he was being set up and denied shooting anyone. The evidence presented against Oswald was compelling to investigators. Section 5. The Silencing of a Secret. Jack Ruby's Sunday Morning. The nation was still reeling from the assassination of President Kennedy when another shocking event unfolded, this time broadcast live on national television. On Sunday, November 24, 1963, just 2 days after the president's death, Lee Harvey Oswald was being transferred from the Dallas City Jail to the county jail. As police escorted him through the basement of the police headquarters, a figure suddenly lunged forward from a crowd of reporters and onlookers. It was Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner with known connections to organized crime figures. In full view of the cameras, Ruby shot Oswald in the abdomen with a .38 caliber Colt Cobra revolver. Oswald collapsed, mortally wounded. He was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where President Kennedy had died 2 days earlier. He succumbed to his injuries shortly thereafter. Jack Ruby was immediately apprehended, the smoking gun still in his hand. Ruby's stated motive for killing Oswald was that he wanted to spare Jacqueline Kennedy the ordeal of returning to Dallas for Oswald's trial. Section 6. The Warren Commission. An official story under siege. In the aftermath of President Kennedy's assassination and the subsequent murder of Lee Harvey Oswald, President Lyndon B. Johnson moved quickly to establish an official investigation. On November 29, 1963, he created the President's Commission on the Assassination of President Kennedy, which became popularly known as the Warren Commission. The commission's mandate was to investigate the facts surrounding the assassination and to report its findings to the American people. After a nearly 10-month investigation, the Warren Commission released its voluminous 888-page report on September 24, 1964. Its central conclusion was unequivocal. Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, had assassinated President Kennedy. The commission found no evidence of any conspiracy, domestic or foreign. It concluded that Oswald had fired 3 shots from the 6th floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. It also concluded that Jack Ruby had acted alone in killing Oswald. However, from the moment of its release, the Warren Commission's findings were met with widespread skepticism. Many Americans found it difficult to accept that such a monumental event could be the work of a single, seemingly insignificant individual like Oswald. Critics pointed to numerous perceived flaws, inconsistencies, and unanswered questions in the report. The single bullet theory, also known as the magic bullet theory, became a particular focus of disbelief and ridicule. Section 7. The Labyrinth of Doubt, Conspiracy's Many Faces. The Warren Commission's conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone failed to satisfy a significant portion of the American public. Over the years, a multitude of conspiracy theories have emerged, each proposing different culprits and motives behind the assassination. One prominent theory implicates elements within the U.S. intelligence community, particularly the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA. Proponents suggest that Kennedy had made enemies within the CIA due to his handling of the Bay of Pigs invasion and his alleged plans to dismantle or significantly reduce the agency's power. Another enduring set of theories focuses on organized crime, or the Mafia. The Kennedy administration, spearheaded by Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, had launched an aggressive war against organized crime syndicates. Jack Ruby's known connections to Mafia figures further fueled speculation that the Mafia orchestrated the assassination. The second shooter theory, often centered on the grassy knoll in Dealey Plaza, remains one of the most popular. It argues that acoustic evidence and witness testimonies indicate shots were fired from a location other than, or in addition to, the Texas School Book Depository. Even foreign powers like Fidel Castro's Cuba or the Soviet Union have been named in various speculative scenarios. The sheer number of unanswered questions created a fertile ground for alternative explanations. These theories often point to powerful groups who may have had reasons to want President Kennedy removed from office. Section 8. Echoes from the past. New voices challenge old truths. Decades after the assassination, the quest for truth continues, with new information and testimonies periodically emerging to challenge the official narrative. The U.S. government has declassified thousands of documents related to the assassination, particularly following the Oliver Stone film JFK in 1991. While many of these documents have shed light on the intelligence community's activities and their awareness of Oswald prior to 1963, they have not provided a definitive smoking gun. Recent years have seen some intriguing developments. In 2023, Paul Landis, a former Secret Service agent, published a memoir. In it, he claimed that he found a nearly pristine bullet on the seat beside where Kennedy had been sitting in the limousine at Parkland Hospital. This claim, if accurate, directly challenges the single bullet theory. Furthermore, in May 2025, a House task force on the declassification of federal secrets held a hearing where former investigators and experts provided testimony. These recent claims and hearings underscore the persistent belief among many that the full story has yet to be told. Section 9. A Nation's Scar, the Enduring Legacy of Distrust. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy on that sunny November day in Dallas did more than just end a life and a presidency. It inflicted a deep and lasting wound on the American psyche. It marked a profound loss of innocence for the nation. The image of a vibrant young leader struck down in his prime, the ensuing chaos, and the subsequent murder of his alleged assassin on live television all contributed to a sense of bewilderment. This single event is often cited as a turning point, ushering in an era of cynicism and skepticism towards government and official institutions. The Warren Commission's findings, intended to provide closure, instead fueled a pervasive distrust. For many, the official explanation of a lone, deranged gunman simply did not align with the enormity of the crime. This skepticism was not confined to the fringes of society. Polls consistently showed that a majority of Americans did not believe the official account. The assassination became a symbol of hidden powers and unspeakable truths operating beneath the surface of American democracy. The legacy of the JFK assassination can be seen in the decades of contentious debate, the countless books, documentaries, and investigations. It fostered a culture where conspiracy theories found more mainstream acceptance. More than 60 years later, the assassination of President Kennedy continues to cast a long shadow over American society. The lingering uncertainty has contributed to a broader climate of suspicion. The nation lost not only a president but also a measure of its faith in simple truths and the transparency of its institutions.